All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video as we recap everything that happened in Ninerland on this Tuesday. And we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. All right. Let's get to the Tuesday update on the 49ers. Niners did not practice today. Today is the players' off day. They will practice Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday before they get on the bird and head to Seattle, where Sunday they will open their 2025 season at Lumen Field against the Seattle Seahawks. Now, couple Niner notes to note today. The Niners did work out Kendrick Bourne. The veteran wide receiver was in for a workout yesterday. And the Niners, he came and went, and there was no announcement. So I think the assumption was that the 49ers had no interest. The Niners did not sign Borne, so he went to Washington today and worked out with the Washington Commanders. But according to reports, the Niners did make a formal offer to Kendrick Bourne, but they did not reach an agreement with Borne, but they did make him an offer. So obviously he looked good enough from their vantage point to at least make him an offer. As I said, he got on a bird and visited Washington today, so whatever offer they made was not a good enough offer to get him to not work out with Washington today. But it is interesting that the Niners did make him a formal offer. So they obviously on some level wanted him, even with Juwan Jennings coming back yesterday. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Now, also today, the 49ers released wide receiver Russel Gage from their active roster. They still intend to re-sign him to the practice squad and elevate him for Sunday's game at Seattle if he doesn't opt to sign elsewhere. So they like Gage, they don't love Gage. He had a good camp with them, but today they released him off their active roster, and if he doesn't go sign somewhere else on their active roster, he may be back on the 49ers practice squad. Now, there is a financial component to this whole thing. The NFL league minimum is about between $750,000 and $800,000. The minimum for being on the practice squad is like $210,000. So it's quite a bit less money if you're on the practice squad than if you're on the active roster. So the Niners released Gage today from the active roster, where he was making over $750,000. And now want to pay him $200,000. So he's going to call around and see if there's somebody that will put him on their active roster so he can make that extra $500,000. But if it doesn't happen, and it may not, you may see Russell Gage back here, and you may see him even elevated for Sunday's game in Seattle against the Seahawks. So there you go. That's the latest on Russell Gage. Now, the Niners also today promoted wide receiver Marquez Valdez-Scantling to the 53-man roster from the practice squad. So Valdez-Scantling will be playing Sunday in Seattle there at Lumen Field. The Niners also today released their official depth chart in advance of their Week 1 game in Seattle. And there were some interesting things on it. One, you've got a couple rookies in the starting lineup. Mikael Williams is the starter at defensive end, and Upton Stout is the starter at the nickel cornerback spot. So you got two rookies who are both slated to start out of the chute. Another kind of interesting note, I kind of thought Nick Martin was the Niners' third linebacker, but they list Luke Gifford as their third starting linebacker over Nick Martin. So that might just be for the depth chart. I got to think that Martin, if they actually go to 3 linebacker alignments, will be that starter at linebacker. Also, there's been a lot of moving parts as far as the defensive tackles. Early in camp, it looked like C.J. West and Alfred Collins were going to be the number 1 defensive tackles. Then it looked like when West went down with the hyperextended knee that it might be Collins and Kalia Davis. Now it's the Niners have listed Kalia Davis and Jordan Elliott as their starters at defensive tackle. So at least going into this first game, the Niners will go with the veterans, at least on the depth chart. The 49ers also announced today that they have released cornerback Trey Brown and offensive tackle Isaiah Prince from injured reserve. Both had been placed on injured reserve with injuries at the end of training camp. But today they were both given injury release settlements. So now Trey Brown and Isaiah Prince are free to do whatever they want to do and free to go wherever they want to go and sign with whoever they want to sign with. That was an interesting note. And then Brian Baldinger went on the radio today, and he thinks that the Niners' success in 2025 completely hinges on Christian McCaffrey's ability to look like he did 2 years ago. And I don't think there's any question that that's a big part of it. I don't know that their success hinges on him being an offensive, player of the year. I just think he has to be healthy. He has to be Christian. If Christian's back and he's healthy, I don't think he needs to play as much as he did 2 years ago. I don't think he needs to be quite as prolific production-wise as he was 2 years ago. He just needs to be a representative version of himself. If he's similar to the player that he was a couple years ago, I think that probably will be enough for the 49ers to get where they want to go. Heck, it'll be awesome if he came back and he was the equivalent of the Christian that we saw when he was the offensive player of the year. Yeah, that would be amazing. But I don't know that the Niners have to have that version of Christian to have success. I think the Niners can have a lot of success this year with Christian, being a similar version to what he was, maybe even not quite what he was, as long as he can, defer from time to time to Brian Robinson. I think it's really important that the Niners get Brian Robinson on the field regularly and also keep Christian from running himself into the ground. That's really the key to the season. What's the key to the season? Is that the Niners get to the playoffs with a healthy Christian McCaffrey. If they can get to the playoffs with a healthy Christian McCaffrey, I've said it a few times, I really believe it. I think that's their key. If they can somehow get back to the playoffs with Christian being the Christian of old or similar to the Christian of old, I think that will be a major key for the 49ers. And what's the key to that? Handing the ball to Brian Robinson a lot throughout the regular season. We should tell you this 49er football season is presented by Sleeper, the fastest growing fantasy platform in the world. It's the one-stop shop. You get blazing fast news, real-time stats, group chat, season-long leagues, and of course Sleeper picks for daily fantasy product. Use promo code Larry and Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. The link's in the description. The terms and conditions apply. Once again, use that promo code Larry and Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.